Namaste. Welcome to the Conscious Convo podcast. I am your host and teacher, Pippa Leslie. I'm here to share everything I learn, see, and channel. This podcast is for the conscious and curious beings who are ready to dive deeper into spirituality. I am so grateful you are here. Well, hello guys, welcome back to another episode with the Conscious Convo. I'm here today with Monique Carmela, and I've been excited to talk to Monique. We've been trying to set this up for a while, haven't we? And it's just definitely divine timing. I'm excited to talk to you today, and I love that you're actually in a tent in nature. It's beautiful to see, and I'm excited for people to get to know you and about your journey and what you do for this world. So hi, Monique.
Hello, thanks for having me. It has been a little while that we've been trying to get on this, so yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, it really is. I'm actually keen to obviously know more about you anyway, but you've just done one of the big festivals in New Zealand, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've been traveling around the country really for the last couple of years, but yeah, the summer season, this is our 5th festival in that spirit. So yeah, just hanging out here for a few more days, integrating everything, because as you may know, when you go to these big conscious events, there's so much that gets stirred up and brought to the surface, and so it's really nice to be in nature and just getting to integrate all of the experiences.
It's beautiful. So what kind of things do you do at the festival? What does your work involve?
Yeah, so it's very intuitive, and there's definitely lots of elements. I tend to focus on the breathwork side of things with the festivals and the different workshops that we run, but there's always a different element and theme, and intuitively guiding that journey of what the group needs in that space. So tuning into each individual and just guiding from the heart.
Yeah, it's beautiful work. I love that we get to do this work for others. It makes our heart warm, doesn't it? Like that we get to actually do that for other people.
Yeah, and it's been really amazing because, as you probably know, the journey for ourselves never ends, and so we're always going through our own stuff. But I find when I enter those spaces to guide someone else, it's like my stuff is really left at the door, and I'm just this vessel and just so present and so connected to each individual, and also the collective. And it's just such a really powerful space, and it is so humbling and so heartwarming to be so deeply in that journey with other people, to feel what they're feeling and to guide them and support them. Often when I pop a hand on someone, or I'm supporting them in their space, in their journey, I actually feel the emotion, and I feel that deep connection, that oneness that we all are. And it's such a beautiful experience. So definitely we're so blessed, so lucky.
Yeah, I think the key thing I teach with a lot of clients is self-awareness, because what you're feeling in them, that is again self-awareness of how interconnected we are, in a sense of we don't realize how connected we all are. Really, we're made up of all the same things. We come from the same place, we return to the same place, we're on earth together, we all share hearts, we all share lungs, we all share everything, and just help people to connect in that way is beautiful. And I think that's what's needed right now, isn't it? That sacred connection. And I was talking to Neil Donald Walsh a few weeks ago. He's one of my spiritual teachers, and he was talking about how all this technology is great. I can talk to you now on Zoom and talk to other people on video, but we're so disconnected with self. So to be able to help someone to connect to self it's the greatest gift you can give them.
It really is. And yeah, there was Bruce Lipton was at the festival, which was really awesome getting to hear him speak, and he put it in a really amazing way of yes, we have our own unique experience, and we're our own unique being, but at the same time we're also almost like a cell of this larger organism called humanity, and we're actually all in this together, as if we were all in the same body, these just different cells moving along the journey, supporting each other. But along the way, we've kind of forgotten that and started to attack one another and attack ourselves. And it was well, this is kind of what autoimmune disease is. And I feel like a lot of us are now on this journey of awakening and first coming home to self, remembering who we are. And then when we do, we're helping each other to remember who we are, and we're actually coming into synchronicity again. Doesn't mean that you necessarily connect or enjoy the presence of every single being, but you are really honoring each being's journey and knowing that if you don't align with that being, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're honoring your authenticity, honoring your path, and you're synchronistically really guided to those who you are meant to be in interaction with, but also knowing that we're all valid, we're all worthy, we all deserve to have our own unique experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I do love Bruce. I haven't looked into his work a lot. He's not been a teacher as such in my life yet. Actually, I'm going watching Eckhart tonight in Auckland. That's going to be really exciting because he's been a big person on my journey, as Wayne Dyer has. But yeah, me and my husband are really looking forward to watching Eckhart, just because when I think about like I watch videos of Eckhart and I think nothing phases him. Like he's way past caring. Like the ego is just completely not even in his like vicinity anymore. He's completely just not bothered. He's just like, as in like, he's so connected to self. And my husband and I were talking about like, I wonder if anything does affect him. I wonder if he does get annoyed or his ego is tested. Like I don't know. I just the way he is, like what really I took this huge experience from Eckhart from watching a video from him. And because I do a lot of speaking and I want to be on stage, like Bruce has just done, like that's one of my goals, is to be on stage talking to people and make people feel welcoming and being in that group. And I remember Eckhart coming on stage, and it's in our nature to get on stage and be like blah 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 blah, because we're like, I'm such a talker, and I think nerves can get the better of us. But once we start to let go of the fear and we start to really connect to ourselves and become independent of the good opinion of others, we got on stage. And I remember Eckhart coming on stage, and he comes in and he sits down and he does this big deep breath, and he sits there for about 5 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, he just sat. Because in that silence, that's the uncomfortable, isn't it? Like sometimes on the podcast, I've noticed it, because my journey for over 3 years on the podcast, I've noticed how I'm kind of taking more steps in the silence, in the gaps, and I think like it doesn't matter. Like when he comes on, the power of that silence, the power of just being in that moment of, he's just sat on stage and everyone's like kind of waiting for him to speak, and he doesn't. People start crying, people start getting really like emotional, and it really hit me out. Even I'm on TV on YouTube watching him, I'm like, oh my God, this is like intense. So it really, really hit me that day, and I thought, I can't wait to watch him tonight. Like I just think he's going to really impact whatever he talks about tonight. But it's in that, sometimes it isn't about the words, is it? It's not even about what we say, it's about the feeling in that moment. And that's why I think like you can see how you growth, with other people as well, because we all mess up, we all make mistakes, we're not perfect. We can be on a podcast and screw up, we can be on stage and screw up, and it doesn't matter. And I think that's the whole point of like not giving a shit really about what anyone's saying. So I think that's definitely a message coming through for me today, is just about like just like, doesn't matter, does it? It just does not matter what anyone says, really. It's about how you feel in yourself and how you see yourself.
I love that you bring that up, because there's like all these things just pinging about now. But yeah, I really resonate with that, because one thing is like when we do screw up and we keep going, we actually let others know that, you know what, we all screw up and it's actually okay, and it's how we learn. It doesn't mean that we are a screw up. It means that we did something that actually gave us the opportunity to learn and grow and keep going and getting stronger and stronger. And then like saying, like, I really resonate with that silence, because there is this kind of feeling of like, you gotta have an answer, like this, go. Like there's no space to actually slow down and tune into what you want to say or share, or especially if someone asks you of something, like they want something from you, and we feel like we don't even have the space, or it's not okay for us to take time and feel into our answer. We tend to be the yes man, or we want to say no to everything, and we have different ways of kind of coping and protecting, which will depend what we kind of go to, whether we're just saying yes and overgiving, or we're saying no all the time and secluding and keeping ourselves away from everyone. And it's really fascinating that not a lot of us feel okay to take the time to actually be like, let me sit with this. And it's been a massive part of my journey, because I'm not sure if I had mentioned to you already, but for years and years, I was pretty much mute, and I was so afraid to speak because I didn't want to get it wrong. I was afraid what people would think. You can't take it back once it's out. And I would like rehearse what I was going to say in my head. But when the opportunity came up to speak, I would completely choke up and my freeze response would kick in, and I literally could not get words out. And so I would smile, and I would hide behind the smile. So people thought, oh, she's just shy, it's okay. But really, I was having these deep panic and anxiety attacks inside. And then over time, doing the work that I do, which is why I'm so passionate about it, is I did find my voice. And what was funny is it went into feeling like I had to respond so fast to go the other way of like, well, if I don't say anything, I'll be judged. So now I'm trying to like say things super fast and get it out and be on point and aim for that perfectionism, which doesn't actually exist. And then it's been a real journey of finding that balance of actually taking time in silence and being with any discomfort of being in silence, but also tuning into when I'm speaking and what's coming through, where it's coming from, what message I want to get across. But it's been such a journey.
Yeah. While you're talking, actually, a quote, because I always quote Wayne Dyer. It's so funny. Like, you listen to my podcast, people just laugh because I'm just constantly, he's on my wall here. He's my spiritual teacher. And there's a quote about men being silent, and it was coming in my head and I can't remember it. And it's a quote, and it was, let me try and find it. I think it's more around, let me try and find this is where we're going to go silent now, because I want to be able to find this, and it's okay, because that's what I was talking to Neil about the other week, is like, on the podcast I'll get this inspiration to look at something or Google something, and I feel like, oh, I need to be quick because people will be judging me like, what's she doing? I'm driving my car and I'm trying to listen to this podcast, and I was just like, I'm really not bothered because I'm finding you an amazing quote at the moment. So
yeah, and it's even giving the listeners an invitation to take silence now as well.
Yeah, I'll have to try and find it, or I can put it in the show notes. But it was about men sitting in a room of silence is probably the hardest thing for them to do. You know, it's but again, that speaks for all of us, as in like you just said then, exactly, being silent with ourselves. That includes like meditation, switching off from the outer world, going to our inner world. Our inner world invites silence, it invites quietness, you know, because the soul wants that for you. Like there's this busyness all the time, you know, there's adverts, there's like radio, there's music, there's people talking, there's traffic, and that's why even getting in nature, and nature's got a lot of silence and answers. Like it's just and that's I think as you get more awake, more connected, you want quietness. Like for me now, where I'm living here in New Zealand, we're renting at the moment, so we're on a busy road, which is fine for now, but I know in my heart my desire is to live out where at night we don't really hear much apart from nature and the bees and the birds, and because that is a desire for me, because of that, just getting quiet, the quietness. It's definitely what's the word, it's like it's a yearning. Because I always think as well, like, go back to when we were in our mother's wombs, you know, we're in a load of water, and all we can hear is a heartbeat, and a heartbeat's very nurturing. You know, we might hear mumbling, you know, outside the tummy, but really we're in a silent state, aren't we? Just growing and allowing ourselves to grow into this beautiful human. And I think that's kind of like, there's a resonance of that, you know, if our soul wants that quietness to go into that little womb and curl up, and it's beautiful, really.
Yeah, and I'm noticing a rise in that, like people wanting to get out of cities and just have that peace, have that quietness. But I think there's also like a lot of conditioning and stuff that comes up in that transition, which can be so uncomfortable, which can cause us to stay in what we know, which is the loud, the busy, because that's how we stay distracted from the pain and the discomfort and the busy mind, because even though it's so busy out there, it actually distracts us from the internal busyness, which is actually the pathway to the quietness. And I really loved a friend of mine who ran a workshop here at NZ Spirit was talking about human design and meditation. And she was like, what if we just remove the word meditation, because people have a lot of ideas around what meditation is, and I've got to like be silent and be like the Buddha or like the monk, and it feels like so far away, that what if meditation was literally just chilling out? And what if it was just listening to whatever's going on inside? So you don't have to shut your mind up. You don't have to stop all the chatter and the things. Just hold space for it and actually let yourself be with it, which I really resonated, which brings me back to what you're mentioning around like the ego with Eckhart Tolle. It was like, I had a really powerful experience with my own ego journey of there's like this internal conflict that's going on, and a lot of the time we step onto the spiritual journey and we want to get rid of this ego, and we wrong it, we shame it, we push it away. But on my journey, I realized that it's actually, for me, like this inner child that's just trying to get my attention, and it's a protection, and it's usually an inner child that's stuck in the past that's trying to protect you from that space that you were at as a child, when you weren't in a space to really protect effectively. You just did what you could to survive in that moment. And then we're going ahead and wronging and shaming this part of ourselves that's actually hurting and wounded and just wants to be seen and heard and expressed and held. And then it's actually just, it's all amplifying and becoming an even bigger storm. And so for me, there was this one time where I got really triggered in an experience with someone, and it just started to spiral, and I got stuck in this thought pattern, this loop, and it was causing so much inner turmoil and pain and suffering. And I was trying to like get out of it. I was really resisting it. And then the message came through of like, actually, I need to be with this. And so I spoke from one part of myself to my ego self of like, you know what, if this is what you need to do to go through this process, that's okay. I'm here with you now. I'm here with you as you go through it. I'm here with you as long as you need to do this. And when you're done, I'm still going to be here. And I just sat with it, and I let my mind just go and go. And it looped for about 2 hours, and then it just started to settle. And it was like this self-soothing feeling of like integration, of like, oh, I'm completing that cycle now. But while I was resisting that cycle, it was just going to play on loop again and again and again. And so that's another thing that I work with now, is like, rather than pushing things away, is how can we embrace it, or how can we love it more? How can we support ourselves more and hold space for ourselves? And then in doing that, we can actually hold space and support others as well, especially our loved ones, because a big part of my journey, and I know of many of my clients' journeys, is the overgiving and the people pleaser. And we just give. But if you are not giving to yourself, if you are not receiving, you run out pretty fast, which leads to resentment, which leads to disease. I really love the quote, resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die, because that's really what it feels like.
Yeah, I love what you said there, because that again goes back to self-awareness of, you know, if and when I'm triggered, which it's definitely a lot less now, it's not as much as it used to be. It's more of my internal dialogue is, okay, I'm allowing myself to be triggered now, and I need to sit with this and understand what it's trying to say. And I kind of go down those two roads of what is the ego saying and what's my higher self saying. And you can just tell the difference between the two. One's trying to keep you safe and one's trying to help you to expand. So it's kind of like when you start to have that awareness, and that's what I teach my clients, that once you have that awareness in yourself, your life becomes, you know, calmer and quieter and, you know, happier, and just it's like you're whole. It's like as though you felt like there's a void, and when you realize that the ego and the higher self, it's all a whole. It's like you just said, this whole death of the ego. It's like no, we don't want to do that. It's a part of us for a reason. You know, why everything has a purpose. Everything in this life we have purpose in everything. If God didn't want us to have ego, he would have sent us down like angels and just been like, go and be angels. But no, he you know, we came to earth with this duality, and that's what life is. It's a duality of up, down, left, right, wrong, fear, love, ego, higher self. So when we combine the two, it's like you said, it's just our survival instinct. And obviously the science behind it, my husband talks about that because he's the spiritual scientist. You know, the ego is definitely evolved with time. It's more about our survival. You know, it's to keep us alive. That's what it's there for. But when now we attach it to other things like people's opinions, how much we earn, what people think of us, things like that. So when we can separate the two and sit with it, like you said, have a conversation with sides, it's like compassion for yourself, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with, but if you don't, like you said, you can sit in that loop for days, and you can replay the scenario. I should have said this, should have said that. Why did I do this? Stupid. And you sit in this anxiety, and you think when you come out of it, oh, look, all that time I just sat wasting, just like, again, feeling sorry for myself, feeling like I'm a victim when you're actually not. So it's, but also having that compassion for you, that it is like, sometimes we dip and we just rise again. Sometimes we dip and we rise again. And it's just having that self-compassion too, that we're all doing this together. Like when I'm triggered, I'll share it with my social media and my clients, because that's part of the expansion of, I'm going through this too. You know, my triggers can be like small. A lot of them can be like with relationships. I'm a new stepmom, so sometimes my triggers are with the kids, and that's part of growth.
Yeah.
As you move through life too, different triggers will come up. I'm sure when I have my own children, I'll have triggers of my own, you know. So it's definitely having that self-compassion with your journey and knowing that there's people going through it as well, and reach out for the help that you need.
Yeah. And children are pretty magical in finding our soft spots and our wounded spots and bringing that to the surface. They're really, really magical beings. And I've got a 2-year-old, and he triggers me all the time. And it's really, for me, triggers is just the revealing of what is unresolved, what is unhealed, what is unintegrated, to bring it up so that we can do something about it, so that we can reclaim more of our power and our authenticity. But without the triggers, we wouldn't know what's unhealed, because that's how we figure it out. Like, oh, there's something here. Let me tune into that. And the more we practice it, the easier it gets. Like that experience where I let myself go through the loop, it's different for me. I wasn't dwelling in it. I wasn't being controlled by it, but I was holding space for it, with what you said before, where you can get stuck in it for days and days and think, what could I have done? Or what should I have done? That's when we're really like stuck in the loop, and it's kind of taken power over us, and we're dwelling. And sometimes we can be dwelling in different emotions and not really fully feeling them. There's still a resistance that creates the lingering effect. But when we actually acknowledge, hey, there's something here for me, what do I need to support myself through this? How can I hold space? How can I have more compassion? That's when it starts to complete the loop, and that trauma cycle or that stress cycle starts to complete. And then it doesn't have as much power over us anymore. So the triggers aren't so intense or so often anymore, like just like you said. And it's the same for me. Like I can get triggered as well. And I'm very transparent about when I'm getting triggered and what's coming up for me, because I think it really helps other people know that it's actually okay to have these experiences. We're not here to put ourselves up on a pedestal like, hey, we've got it all figured out, now we're going to show you how to figure it all out. No, the healing journey is continuous. And like you said, there's always going to be another layer and another level of healing and expansion. And I believe there does come a time where you could be like Eckhart and just be like really embodied in your space. And I think the ego is always there, but it just has a lot less power over you, where it becomes a messenger. And we all still want protection and to feel safe and to have boundaries. But when that becomes just a natural thing for you, when it becomes normal, because for so long boundaries weren't okay, or otherwise it just makes you mean or rude, or all the different stories that come along with setting boundaries. Actually, when they become normal and natural, we don't need to have a lot of those internal battles around, if I set this boundary, what does it mean about me? What are they going to think of me? We just hold our authenticity and hold ourselves of like, this is who I am, and you're either going to like it or not, and either way it's okay. We're not going to resonate with every single being, but we will resonate with who we're divinely meant to be in that space. And we just continue to evolve, and our resonance shifts and changes as we go.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say. Like it's just what I teach and what is beautiful for people to understand. And once they start to get it, and you see that they're getting it, and do their inner work and they message you and they're like, oh, I've just connected these dots, and I'm like, oh, this gives me so much happiness, and they feel better and they feel more in control of their own emotions and how they're feeling and why they're feeling that way, especially from you think of a child's point of view. They feel everything, don't they? They feel deeply. They may not understand it as much as you do as an adult, but then again, we're still just these little children in adults' bodies. We still want to be seen, heard, loved. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that we never actually grow up. We're just these little kids. And that's why inner child stuff's great for me. Like, I love watching Disney. I'm such a Disney fanatic. I love playing games. I'm such a little kid in that sense. I can go into Disneyland and I'll cry with like a child, like with excitement and joy. And I love that part of me. I'll never let that part of me go, because that's always been there with me. And that wonder and joy, like bringing that wonder and joy of life back into like how a kid would see the world. You can tap into that so easily. There's something that I wanted to touch on as well, because when I spoke to Neil Donald Walsh, he touches my soul in so many ways. And we were talking about different, why we're here and what's the point and all this kind of stuff. And he asked me what I think. And I was like, oh, well, I don't really have an opinion, because I try and stay open to possibilities. And, as Wayne says, have a mind open to everything, attached to nothing. So I kind of try and have that. And Neil basically said, well, let me try and help you form an opinion. So I was like, oh, okay. So he gives me this 3-minute beautiful like speech. I got emotional. He spoke directly to my heart. And since he said it, I've been like thinking more about it. So since speaking to Neil, it's made me think, like it's made me go, oh, well, you're questioning different things. So I think I want to kind of ask others about it too, because there's no right or wrong. It's just, I'm very intrigued to get other people's kind of take on it. So I'm trained under Dolores Cannon, QHHT. And Dolores says, we come to Earth as an Earth school, and we learn lessons. And part of me agrees with that. I think it's beautiful. We learn and we grow. Neil, on the other hand, doesn't not agree with that. He just says we come here to experience. Now, an experience compared to a lesson is softer. And I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense, because I was chatting to a client who had a hypnosis session yesterday, actually, and we were talking about, when you think of a lesson, it's like a constant loop of like, learn the lesson. And do you fully ever learn the lesson? So there's kind of like, do you? So, because if you don't, you're supposed to come back to Earth, and that can be really kind of like heavy for people, especially if they don't want to be here in the first place. But I think Neil really put it beautifully about, it's like, I can never do it justice. I won't even try and repeat what he said, because it was just so beautiful. But really what he was trying to say was that we come here to experience being a human. And if we can just trust why we're here, because like he said, he mentioned a tree, does the tree question itself when it's from the seed growing into the tree? It's like, it's the same as us. Why do we question who we are? Why do we question why we're here? Why do we question it all? And I was like, he's got a point here. Like, there's just this big emphasis at the moment about finding purpose, living with meaning, and it's all amazing, but also it can become like a cat and mouse. Like it's like you're chasing something all the time, where if you can just be, as Eckhart says, the power of now, just in the now of, you're here to be Monique. I'm here to be Pippa. And it's just, there's no, it's experience and everything. So when we kind of go through like loss, grief, happiness, love, joy, they're all experiences. So when he said it, I was like, it's so true, because we can also like get caught in, when we're triggered or something happens, we're looking for the lesson all the time. And if we don't find the lesson, we're like, oh, well, what, and it's can become a bit of an addiction to finding lessons, to finding. So I kind of really, had that, my mind opened when I spoke to Neil, and I wanted to get your take on it and what you think.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because I agree with what you've just shared. And for a big part of my journey, I believed the Dolores way of like, we're here to learn and we come back for more lives and just learn and learn and learn. And I also believed that when we don't learn the lesson, we come back, or we don't heal the trauma, we come back. And I did feel that kind of cat and mouse, like that feeling like you're always chasing and you're always trying to achieve something. And then it's like, is it enough? Like, oh, this thing's coming back up. I obviously didn't do it right, or I didn't learn enough. It's like, how many layers are there? It's like, this feels like this infinity onion, like just peeling back these layers, and it's never ending. But I actually found, like, through my continuous journey, there did come a point where I realized, yeah, I am learning and growing and evolving every day. And I love that. Like, I love progress. I love feeling like I'm growing. And I believe in the statement of, if you're not growing, you're dying, kind of thing. But also, more at my core, I believe we're here to experience. I believe at the core, we are a fragment of God, which means we already know all things, which means we're actually here for the experience of learning and growing and evolving and expanding. And I believe there is potentially a time where you complete the journey, and maybe you go back, and then maybe you decide, oh, I'm going to go for another experience. But I also have that open mind as well of, I don't know everything, and I don't ever intend to or expect myself to know everything. And so the openness and the humility and the surrender of, like, you know what, I'm never going to learn all of the things that I desire to learn, but I'm going to keep learning because it actually lights me up. And I'm going to also continue to experience and come into the now. And a big thing that breathwork taught me was that when you're in the breathwork, there's a moment that happens where you come from the thinking mind, where you're wondering what's going to happen, when's it going to happen, what am I going to feel, and we're in that mind and trying to figure it out and anticipate as a way of protecting. And then this moment happens where you drop into the body, and it's like and you just swoosh. And it's almost like a psychedelic experience where you come into the body and you're no longer thinking. There might be lingering thoughts, but your breath becomes like you're doing the connected breath just naturally without effort. And you're feeling your different sensations. You're feeling emotions with no idea what the emotions are attached to. You're not buying into the story of why I'm crying or why I'm laughing or how did I all of a sudden go from bawling my eyes out to hysterically laughing, to feeling angry, to feeling frustrated, to all of a sudden my body's tremoring and releasing. There's no story attached. You're just in the moment, and you don't need to know what you're releasing in order to release it. So then it comes back to what you said around, if we don't know what we learned, or did we learn enough of it? It's like, well, our body can heal without our mind knowing exactly what happened. We can release generational trauma without knowing what our ancestors and lineage went through, but we can feel it on a physical level and support the healing of those generations. So I believe, it's really about the experience, and that we're here to experience all that it means to be human, not to get rid of all the shit and just experience the light, because at the end of the day, all we are is love, all we are is light. So really, I feel like we've come here to experience the polarity. And did you read Neil's children's book?
No, I didn't know.
I recommend getting that one, because I got into Neil's work a little while ago, and it was just like boom, boom, like all these ahas, and I'm like, oh, this is so like nourishing. And so I got the child's version to read to my 2-year-old, and it simplifies pretty much what we're talking about, of like this kind of, I guess, angel or godlike being, like this true essence of who we are, saying, I want to know what it's like to experience this thing, or to be who I am. It's like, so you want to experience what you already are? And it's like, yeah. And it's like, it's just, he puts it in such a beautiful way. Like what you said, you can't really repeat his words. It's just so
the way he talks, like, oh my God. Even his voice, like when he came on the Zoom, I'm like, he just soothes my voice. He just, the way he explains things, and it was just beautiful. Like my husband was listening to it. He's like, oh my God. I said, I know. It's just that he's so godlike. That's why I think it resonates so much, because as you said, we're a piece of God, and people find that really hard to grasp, to understand, because we are experiencing being a human, so we are the spiritual being, which is God, having this human experience. But if we can just trust that our path is laid out for us, and we can just, like I always say to my clients, imagine you driving the car at night and you got your headlights on, you can only see 200 yards in front of you. That's how we should live life, is just keep going, driving, look straight ahead, don't look in the rear mirror, just keep looking straight ahead, because that's how life is. We've left this little path. And the thing is, when you look in the deeper levels of it, as Neil and I got into a little bit, is that if you completely trust your journey, like trust it to a T, that the right people will come into your life to stay, to teach, to grow, to whatever. You'll pick up the right book, you'll go into the right store, you'll move to the right country, you'll pick up the right career, you'll, you know, rescue the right dog. It's like there's no ifs, whats, buts. It's just, you just know. It's like, it's just a knowing. Now, the ego side of us does bring in the self-doubt. What if, you know, but it's, as you said, it gets quieter and quieter and quieter. And sometimes I think, like, you know, I'll have a great few weeks and then the ego will creep in and I'll go, okay, what's the check? So it's like a checkpoint for me. And then I do the checkpoint, I'm like, okay, you know, and it's just like a constant check of self. I think that's kind of how I see it, really, is just I'm being, not, I don't like saying tested. I don't like to use the word tested. I don't think God tests us. I think it's just a check. How you doing? Just slip that in, just see how you doing. And I think that's why we can just trust the journey of, you know, especially like as Neil, if you watch Neil's movie on YouTube, Conversation with God movie, Chris and I watched it the other week, and I was like, it just explains it so well, how like he was rock bottom, homeless, living in a tent, no job. And he just kept getting hit and hit and hit and hit. And if we go into another layer, which we'll probably talk on another podcast about, like, you know, you do manifest what you need at that moment. So like he was rock bottom and he's like saying to God, oh my God, is this it? Like, what the hell? And then God starts talking to him. Have you had enough yet? That's how a conversation with God started. But he knew he needed to be there to get to, you know, to write these books. So when you are in your low moments, you know, how can I word it? It's like, I don't want to say take responsibility for it, because that's like, again, harsh. That's like being an adult to a child.
Yeah.
It
feels like where your wisdom comes through.
Yeah. If you're in a low moment right now and you're listening to this podcast and you're in a low place, how, I'm trying to think how Neil would describe it, but say it in Pip's words, like, is just be where you are, because it is temporary. Like everything's temporary. Your anger, your frustration, your sadness, your loneliness is temporary, and things will always get better. And it's knowing that where you are right now, there's just an experience in it. There's an experience of the duality of low and high, of sadness and happiness. To know happiness, we have to know sadness. To know happiness, we have to know sadness. To know love, we need to know fear. So we have to have a duality to go, oh God, it's like that whole, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. To know how much you love someone, some people have to lose them. It's the whole, like, and that's the experience of being a human. And it can be challenging, it can be difficult, but I think if you just what's the word? It's not responsibility. It's like, if you take your power back in that moment, you know, reach out to people who can help, who can support you, who love you, you know, who make you feel better, who can cheer you up. But know that is a temporary emotion that will move and shift. Yeah,
and taking responsibility doesn't mean that it's your fault for what happened to you. It's actually acknowledging that you're in a position now to choose what you do next with that experience, whether you allow that experience to continue having power over you, or whether you use that experience to empower you to move forward. So that's where I think it gets tricky, because I use the word take responsibility a lot, but it's not from a place of like, it's your fault what happened. It's up to you now to choose what you do with it, because a lot of my traumas and wounds and experiences, good and bad, have shaped me who I am today, and it's why I do what I do. So can I really keep blaming and raging and getting angry, or blaming other people for what happened and saying they're wrong, they should fix it? Well, it's like, they're coming from their wounded space and they didn't have the capacity to act any differently. But that experience that I had has allowed me to step into my power, my truth, and support others to do the same. And it's taking our power back from that situation. Because when you're stuck in a trauma cycle and you're playing out the past, or the past is so buried deep and repressed, you don't even remember it, but it's having power over you on a subconscious level, where it's like, why do these things keep happening to me? You're probably stuck in that trauma cycle, which means that past experience still has power over you. You're still being traumatized from that initial experience, because trauma, it's not really the external experience, it's what happened inside of you when that experience happened. And there was that disconnection from self as a way to protect, But if we can complete that cycle, that's when you start to take your power back, and it does become more resonant that I am a fragment of God. I am godlike. I am powerful. I do have a mission here. I do have purpose, and I don't need to chase a purpose. I don't need to figure it all out mentally or egotistically, but I can actually just know that I can trust my process, my path. I've come here for a reason. I deserve to be here. I deserve to enjoy the abundance and the goodness of life. But in order to do that, I also have to be able to lean into the darkness, into the shadows, into the heavy emotions in order to embrace all of life.
Love that. That's a great way to wrap up, I think. And it's actually 111 on the clock too, which is great. I actually do want to get you back on for a part 2 to maybe talk about, you know, moving into that godlike manifestation, you know, because like I get asked all the time, how do I manifest this? How do I manifest that? I never have enough money. I did it. And it's just like, there's another layer to it. There's just that trust and you know, analyzing thoughts, but watching thoughts, always stay in a high vibrational state, surround yourself with high vibrational people and catching those thoughts of lack mindset, or, you know, it's definitely another topic we can touch on, because I think people kind of come to me with that a lot.
Yeah, because I do find that when we set the intention for what we want to manifest, it brings up all the opposite in order to heal it, to create space for the thing that you want. So I often talk about in breathwork session, if you're setting your intention to have inner peace, you're probably going to experience any inner turmoil that needs to be healed and integrated in order to get to the peace. But they feel like, oh, it must not have worked because I got all the anxiety and all the things. Same with if it's money and abundance. If you've got scarcity wounds and you set intention for abundance, you've got to go through all the scarcity wounds, which means you might go to the lowest scarcity place ever that you've ever experienced in order to heal it, integrate it, to move into the manifestation of abundance. So it's definitely another layer and another deep dive topic. So we can leave that one for a part 2.
Amazing. I've loved chatting to you today. Where can people find you, Monique? So it's pretty much everything is under my name. So my website, moniquecarmela.com, Facebook at Monique Carmela, Instagram at Monique_Carmela. Pretty easy to find me. I've tried to keep it the same all around. I'll put all those links in the show notes. And you're also doing Earthbeat shortly, aren't you, as well, for anyone who's in New Zealand? Yep.
So I'll be at Earthbeat and also Shiva Shakti after that.
Oh, amazing. I'm trying to get to one, but it's just the timing at the moment isn't right. So I'm just trusting that I'm meant to go and I'm meant to go. Yep,
definitely. You'll be on that stage.
That's the dream. I love chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been an awesome conversation.
Yes, it has. I really hope you enjoyed it, guys. I definitely did. Please leave a 5-star review and share it with your friends and your family. It really helps to get this podcast out to more people. I'm trying to grow it in New Zealand now, which is great. I can see my numbers kind of going up in New Zealand, which gives me so much joy and gratitude. And I will speak to you all soon. I'll be back next week with another episode, but take care. And wherever you are in the world, I'm sending you so much love. Bye, guys.